Oh, there you go. So, yeah, so it's being recorded. Does that show up there? All righty. So I'm Elmer Masters, the Director of Technology for CALI. And I'm going to be talking about our journey of moving Drupal 7 to Drupal 10 with some possible side trips because, and all the best journeys have the best side trips. So, and actually the first side trip, because this is kind of cool. So I have my presentation, the PowerPoint, but I have some notes, and I was like, man, it'd be great if I could get those in the computer, so I could do something with them. So I took a picture with my phone, and then I used Google Lens, which let me select all the text. It turns up like that. And then one of the options that it lets me do is copy to computer. And if I do that, it actually puts it into the clipboard of my laptop. And then, because I wasn't even done yet. So then I took it and I was like, okay, so this is supposed to be slides. And so I took the text and I dropped it in the Copilot and I said, make it a slideshow, which it politely told me that, sorry, I can't actually do slides, but here's like an outline. And it took this sort of jibbery jabbery kind of, I gotta quit looking over my shoulder. I'll assume it's all up there. The jibbery jabbery text that was my handwriting, which Google did an okay job of. But it actually then put together some slides and it got the idea that I was actually talking about platform migration and AI assisted development as the sort of overall thing. So there you go. Sadly, that was just a half hour ago and I didn't have time to get into PowerPoint. Hey, that's okay. But we will, but I do have my outline. So some of the things that, like, when it just works, it's great. However, sometimes it doesn't work, and that's a different problem. So let's get this out of the way. I need to move. Sometimes, does anybody else have problems with like the little bits from Zoom landing in the wrong spot? Oh man. Okay. So it's not just me. Good. So what I want to talk about today is a little bit about how what we're doing to move from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10, and I'm going to share some of what our Drupal 10 site looks like, some under the hood stuff, and I'll talk about some of the development process that we're using, working with consultants and myself to kind of get all this done. So just by way of background, so this is actually the dev version of the Drupal 10 site right now. It's a mock-up of a potential home page. So we've been in Drupal 7 for about somewhere around 14 years. It's been like a long time. No, it actually has been almost, because we're in Drupal 6 for like a minute, and then we moved to Drupal 7. And we've been in Drupal 7 for a very long time. Some of my code work in Drupal 7 is 14 years old, so I'm assuming that's about where that is. So 14 years is a long time. So we had accumulated a lot of stuff, obviously, in Drupal 7 over time. But if you haven't looked at the CALI website lately, please do, because it is what we do. But there's basically the big thing that happens there is that's where law students go to run CALI lessons, right? There are three big things. That's the big thing. That's where most of our traffic comes from, is law students running CALI lessons. So that sounds simple, but it's not, right? Because it's all powered behind the scenes by a bunch of custom Drupal modules that make sure that students log in, they create accounts that are linked to the law school that they actually go to, that law faculty can create links that they can use to assign lessons to students. Students can run the lessons. All the work that the students do gets recorded, and then the students can see all their work. And if it was an assigned lesson using our lesson link features, then the faculty can see the work too. There's also the capability to use our authoring tools, CALI Author and QuizWrite, to create CALI lessons, custom lessons, and QuizWrite quizzes for formative assessment. So all that's baked in there. That's kind of the primary thing. The second thing that's big are the Langdell casebooks, which represent free casebooks, not $400, not $400, just free. You can just go and get them, and they're written by actual law professors, and they're peer reviewed. Is anybody else peer reviewing casebooks? No, I think so. But so they're quality stuff. Those are downloadable for free. And then the third big thing is the CALI Excellence for the Future Awards, which schools award to students who do best in a section or a class, or however they want to do them. And then the students come and look at those. And if you get a day like we had like last week, when a bunch of schools were putting up awards for the spring, then there's somebody in Bermuda, right? And they're just wailing on the list for their law school. I don't know if they were like waiting for it to appear, or if they kept on hoping they would get added to it, or what the problem was. But there they were. They kept looking. And I imagine them sitting with some subtropical breezes and a nice drink on the beach and just looking on the where's the my award. But I don't know. So that's kind of the third big things there. So all of that is powered by a lot of custom Drupal work. So when we wanted to make the jump from 7 to 10, we actually started with the jump from 7 to 8. And that became 7 to 9. And now it's 7 to 10, but 11's out. And then so at some point, we'll actually catch up with the current version of Drupal. My prediction is 2047, but it's really hard to say. So the basic parts of the Drupal website are actually like fairly straightforward in terms of migration, and we hired somebody else to do that. So we have a consultant, and they're just finishing up migrating all of like Drupal structured in nodes and entities and stuff, and it's like pretty straightforward. And so all the basic stuff, like all the pages that describe what a lesson is, or what the book, what book it is, and all those sort of things, that's all done. And I'm working on the custom module stuff, and then we're tidying up some of the stuff around the award system, which is kind of complicated. So that's where we're at. But we had to do it because Drupal 7 is end of life, which means that if you don't develop software, it just means that it still runs, but there's no security support for it, basically. So if somebody discovers some sort of big bug in Drupal 7 right now, then we might be vulnerable to that, with security issues and stuff. I mean, it'll keep running. I mean, we've run old code before. Let me just put it that way. Stuff that we should have stopped running a long time ago. We ran for like years, and it's fine as long as you keep an eye on it and keep up with what you're doing. So, but we need to move from 7. And like I said, it's we started when we we never really did Drupal 8. I will say that. We did have like a prototype for Drupal 9, but then 10 came rushing down, and we had to change consultants, and so the current migration has really been happening since September. So it's actually cooking right along. I know it seems like forever. But we actually only engaged our current consultants in September. So that's really not that long. It's only been like 8, 9 months. So they're like I said, they're wrapping stuff up. And so what we have like right now is a lot of the basic stuff is indeed in Drupal 10. This is a mock-up of what the home page could look like. One of the neat things about this is that it's all a matter of there's a tool called Layout Builder that's used to kind of put these pages together. And so you can actually go in and actually add blocks, move blocks around for different things. Like for example, let's see, we can add a block. I think this will work. So we can add a block that is called, well, let's do, I think we can get, that wasn't it. I think we can get 1L lessons in here. And let's see, we don't need a title. We'll add the block. And so now it should have stuck a block in here, right where I had it. Right, so there's a block that's called Top 1L Lessons. There are a whole bunch of blocks that we can add in to do different things, and they're customizable. So, like for example, this quote block, obviously, nobody wanders around mumbling Latin anymore, except for the Pope. Yay. And that's right. There was a lot of Latin, and it was fun watching when the Pope when they selected the new Pope. It was fun watching the Vatican City TV streams live where they actually had a Latin translator. I mean, how often? But apparently, apparently the Pope speaks in Latin a lot, just as a matter of tradition, and so they have a Latin translator. If I had known, I took 4 years of Latin in high school, went to a Jesuit high school, and if I'd known I could have been a Latin translator for the Vatican, I might even become Catholic. I don't even know. So all the cool jobs, man, they're all out there. So anyway, so we can do a lot with layouts and things like that but I'm not going to save that. To sort of customize the look and feel of this. And we've got different cards we can populate. We can highlight lessons and books of the week. We've got a rehab event calendar. To the calendar? No. I know why though. That's why this is still in development. Not all the links work. But we do have, I mean, we've got lessons are over here, so we can take a look at the way lessons look. And actually, if you're familiar with our website, they pretty much looks the same. And that was partly because it was sort of easier for them to not create a whole new theme and go through the whole sort of rebranding or redesign of the entire website would have stretched the whole process out further. So we had some design work from a previous consultant, and we just sort of we gave them that and said, this is what we want to do. And being great consultants, they said, that's awesome, we can do that. And so we've got, you know, a lot of the stuff that you normally see on the website these days. And then, but there are improvements in the way that stuff lays out. So for example, on the current website, you can't find the list of 1L books, right? You just get like the giant list of books. So there'll be like 1L books, and they'll be broken down by broken down even further. And then this is what a book looks like. I picked the one without a print version because just but so that's there. And then let's see. We can take a look at a second work. Come on. Maybe don't have to make it open into that. So, and we've got the award system. So the awards, which will probably take a second to load up here. And again, in terms of the sort of look and feel for the front end, it's pretty much the same. A lot of the stuff, there are things in the back. On the back end, so let's take a look at, let's see, University of Alabama's got a lot of awards. So one of the key features that we're adding is the ability to print an award from the website, which we don't currently have. So that'll download a PDF basically. I mean, you could actually print it, that's what it does, but you could just tell it to save it to PDF, and then you get a nice colorful PDF that'll print on 8x10 paper. This will be wrapped in security. We haven't figured out exactly how we're going to do this yet, because we want to set it up so that only the person whose name's on the award can get the award, which means they'll have to create an account and do some things like that to so that they've got so that we're not just letting anybody print any awards. Although, somebody asked, like, well, does it make a difference? They can see all the awards now, so technically they could print them. I'm like, yeah, I know, but if we can get them to essentially adopt their award, right? So like, yes, this is my award, then it gives us a potential maybe for future fundraising or something like that too. So yeah. So that's yeah, that's basically all of that. And on the back end, it's a lot of Drupal. The theme for Drupal administration is better in Drupal 10. It's even better in Drupal 11, but that's okay. And again, you just have a lot of basic stuff that we'll be going through. So there's a couple of things that we're looking forward to in Drupal 10 to cover some of the things that we'll be adding once we've got stuff in, which is better search. So right now we use Solr as our search engine, which gives us pretty good search. I mean, if you're on the website, on the main CALI website these days, let's see. I will go to the main site. So if you're on the let's see, we'll do a search for contract formation. So you can drill down through through a lot of different sort of layers if you're looking for just lessons or books or podcasts, and find different things. It also suggests other things. If you're looking at something specific, I think I picked a book. Oh no, this has it. So I picked this book, Val Rick's The Story of Contract Law. And so we've got a block called More Like This that's coming from the search engine that's recommending like 5 things that are similar. So that, and some of those are they could be lessons and books or even podcasts, crossword puzzles, different things that we have. But what we're going to do with search in Drupal 10 is AI. Thank you. And so Solr, we'll still use Solr because I've been using Solr for my whole career as a search engine. So, but it has natural language processing plugins that actually are rather old at this point. They're well developed. That'll allow for sort of a more conversational sort of approach to search. So, we can do stuff like, what do you want to learn about today, kinds of things, and let students search through our materials that way, and come up with stuff. So we're looking forward to adding some of that. The other thing is we'll have better access to APIs for the data, so that we could develop alternative front ends, for example. So a CALI app would be easier to execute. Alternative front ends to the way that like everything's displayed. So if we want to step outside of Drupal and the constraints that it has, we can use the API to do that sort of stuff. So that'll be coming. So that's kind of the main sort of where we're at with getting from 7 to 10. With a little luck, fingers crossed, we should have it shifted to over to Drupal 10 by for the beginning of the fall semester. So we'll say August 1st. Because it's really close. There's a bunch of stuff I need to do, and we're going to talk about some of that a little bit. And then I need to rebuild the infrastructure, which is always exciting, in the cloud that powers all this. And you could say overpowers it, because, man, but so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the kind of the workflow things with the way that we've got everything put together. So we're using a tool called DDEV, which is a development environment, and you can actually use it with. It was written for basically any PHP based project. So if you're doing WordPress or Joomla or just like any Typo 3, I think is in there, and a bunch of other PHP based frameworks and content management systems, you can use DDEV. And what DDEV does is it basically works with Docker and some Linux command line type environment. So on Windows, it uses the Windows subsystem for Linux. If you're running it on Linux, it just runs. If you're on a Mac, it runs natively on the Mac, and all the Linux stuff is in containers. But what that lets us do is basically create a you just you define your project and you set it up, and it creates a development environment for you that is portable, among other things, so that you can, let's see, we'll start it up. So it fires up a whole bunch of a bunch of containers, and it basically allows you to pick your web server, pick your version of PHP, which is important. It supports a couple of different databases, including MySQL, Postgres, MariaDB. You can pick your version of that. It supports Solr, so you can have a Solr container set up. So there are all these different sort of ways to configure it, and then it just it's being slow today. And I think I plugged my USB 3 drive into a USB 2 port. Mm-hmm. And so it's being slow, but at least it's there. So anyway, the thing is that the way that it gets used, if you've got a development team, or if which our consultants are sort of an extension of that. So we use DDEV with Git and GitHub for version control, and the definitions of things that get created for DDEV are basically defined in a single file, and then anybody who gets that file, when they launch it with DDEV installed, they get the same setup, right? So I'm working on Windows. Consultants work on Macs because I think that's a rule, but they also but I also develop. I spend a lot of development time on a regular Linux machine too. So, but everything's the same. So I don't have to worry about versions of PHP or versions of Apache or MySQL, and there's facilities for snapshotting the database. So you just move the database with not through GitHub, because you don't want the database on GitHub. That's an important thing. Don't put a dump of your production database on GitHub. That's a bad idea. But we moved, we just moved we use Google Drive to move, the database dumps. And the development database right now weighs in at like, the compressed, is it compressed? I don't think it's compressed, but it's about 18 gig. The full production database with Drupal 7, the databases for Drupal 10 are a little bit smaller, which is actually nice. Our full Drupal 7 database, I think, is somewhere around 50 or 60 gigs all in, mostly because of the lesson run table. Those lessons, I told you we track all that. So every time a student starts a lesson, there's a row in the database, and we've got what are we up to, 11 or 12 million rows, something like that, going back to reliably back to about 2011. Before 2011, it's kind of iffy, but after 2011, we started automatically saving stuff when students were running lessons. So yeah, and so we've got quite a pile of data. But with DDEV, we can create this environment, and then and technically you could use this in production, but we don't really. Like, even that development server has the same layout as DDEV, but it isn't DDEV because it runs into weird problems. It doesn't scale right, and which is why it's called dev. So it's really for development. But with it, with the combination of GitHub and DDEV, we can run all the code that everybody's running the same code, or everybody's working, together. And so it's actually been really smooth. The consultants are out there cranking away. One of the great things about consultants is I'm here and they're working. Yeah. So for example, they've got a pull request ready. Is it ready yet? I don't think it's ready yet. They always tell me. No, because they always make me a reviewer, and they're like, Elmer, it's all yours. And then I can go through it, and I can reliably pull that code down, run it in the same environment that they're using, and then know whether or not it's going to work. So it makes it definitely makes things a lot. It's just a lot easier. So, but the big thing is that we needed to rewrite all of those modules. So the big one is the CALI lessons module, which runs the lessons, right? So I needed to let me just drill in here a little bit. So we needed to have a, so we needed to do that. But the thing is, from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10 requires a complete rewrite, because Drupal 7 is Drupal 7. Drupal 10 represents a completely different shift in architecture and underlying framework and stuff. So all the API calls changed, all of the data structures changed, a whole bunch of stuff changed. And if you're just doing a basic site where you need to move content from one version to another, there was a relatively straightforward migration path for that. That was pretty easy. But if you're doing stuff with custom modules, then you've got to rewrite all of it. So initially, when I was looking at this, I started using a library called Retrofit, which would basically run your Drupal. The idea was it would run your custom Drupal 7 modules in Drupal 10 and 11. I was like, ooh, I'll bet I can break that. And guess what? I did. It worked to a point, and it definitely helped. It was also a really good learning tool, because it showed me where the big changes were versus the little changes in the structures and things. And so it was pretty good. I ran into a problem with it. I started looking on, it's open source, so I go to the GitHub repo and I check the issue queue, and other people are having exactly the same problem, and everybody's trying to fix it. But there was one person who was absent from the discussion for over a year, the developer of the thing. He was off doing something else because he got busy and he moved on to other things. So it was essentially abandoned. So I was like, well, now I can't do that. So what am I going to do? Well, the answer actually turned out to be AI, which is, there you go. So one of the so for the actual coding, I use Visual Studio, and I have let's see, I haven't opened a folder, so we will open a folder quick. Here. So it's a Microsoft Visual Studio is a Microsoft product. It's open source. It's free to use. It's really good for PHP, and it actually has plugins to understand like Drupal, like Drupalisms and autocompletes and stuff. So it's aware of through the plugins. It's aware of the let's see. Pick the wrong one. So, scroll down again. Pick lessons. Oh, actually, we won't pick the lessons module because that's empty. So one of the things that right. So one of the things that happens is that the Drupal shifted from being sort of just a straight kind of PHP thing to more object-oriented programming, which is fine. But that's a learning curve. So one of the things I did was I had to start on some of this stuff. And I had an idea of what the rough layouts were. But what I didn't have was yeah, so we go. So one of the things I discovered is that Copilot for Visual Studio, which also works with GitHub, another Microsoft product, is actually really good at doing it's really good at doing like repetitive programming tasks, right? So basically what I did was I told it that here's the module that I have, right? And it knows about the Drupal 10 APIs, which is really handy. So once I figured out that it knew enough about the structure of Drupal 10 that I could get it to create the framework for modules, I gave it the Drupal 7 module and told I needed to convert it to Drupal 7. And it was a lot more complicated than that, trust me. But I kept on having to, eventually I got it to the point where I had the structure that I needed, and it made sure that I had all of the necessary files, right? So and then I was able to start going through the whole thing and doing stuff like making sure that all of the database queries, for example, were right. Because like all good generative AI, it had a tendency to drift. And so it had started, and this is there are probably a couple of thousand lines of code here, right? So it'd start really well, and then it'd sort of like start making up variables and database tables that didn't exist and a whole bunch of other stuff. So you had to like stop it and then and then like sort of go back and like it's like it's best, it's at its best if you ask it to write 5 lines of code, right? So I need I need like this database query with this variation like 6 times, which you do sometimes in this stuff. And so so I can type that one prompt and it'll give me all of those database queries, and I just need to make sure that they work and that they're giving me back what I want, and then we can just put them in. And so it saves me a ton of time. And it really did help with the structure. The other thing that was interesting about it was that I actually asked it to write, because one of the things that we've always been really bad at, frankly, is documenting our work. So I actually asked it to take the module that we were working on, which was the lessons module, and to create a README for it. And it did a really good job, actually. And it even tells you stuff like how to enable it and all that sort of stuff, and what the usage, and the usage part is technically is it actually it's fine. It got all this stuff because by the time I asked for the README, I had been through the whole module and it was working. So so it did a really good job of sort of parsing through the stuff that was working and actually creating a pretty good read. So it saved me a ton of time at exactly the point at which I was like sort of going, well, I don't have a lot of hair to pull out, but I was going to be pulling out my hair when the retro module wasn't going to work for me so well anymore. So so we got so I got that going, and yeah. And so now I like AI for this. I still don't like AI for giving me legal opinions, but I think we know why. I mean, it's like one of those things like Copilot is really handy in getting those like repetitive things out of the way. The other thing is that whatever it gives me, I know that I can check it, right? So I understand what it's supposed to be, and I have to test the code to see whether or not it's working. So all of that kind of makes it a useful tool to have, as opposed to just asking like random questions and then hoping that it's right. I can't hope it's right. This has to work, right? Can't be like I have a Nissan parked in the lot over here, and it's financed through Nissan, through their finance thing. And so about a month ago, start getting emails. We're going to change our account numbers. We're shortening them. I'm like, well, I don't know. Is business bad? Whatever, right? It doesn't make a lot of difference. And like, oh, and by the way, when we do this, the website, our websites are going to be down for like 2 days. Well, the 2 days was over a week ago, and like the website's still down. I had to call them to get, because you had to log into the website to get your new account number. And you can only get it after the date that it was supposed to be, which happened to be like, about a week before my payment was due. So I'm having to call to get the new account number, and then find an alternative way to pay because the website was down. My websites don't go down. That's the thing. If www.cali.org isn't running, yeah, knock on wood, right? Then usually it's something relatively catastrophic and rarely self-inflicted anymore. We used to do that, but we don't do that anymore. It's been a long time. No, we do run into, we had an issue a few weeks ago where we just had thousands and thousands of hits against search engine, all coming from an array of IP addresses that were originating out of China, apparently. And it took a while to kill it, and it was impacting the performance of the website by the time we beat it down. But that just happens. So, all right, anyhow, that's kind of what I have. I'm kind of at the end of my notes. flip the page. Is there anything interesting on the back? I already talked about that. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Sure.
Longtime CALI user, love the lesson links for. I know you mentioned this sort of the design. Something you can do that wouldn't be too complicated, something with the CSS, change the color. I think the look is looking a little vintage.
Oh yeah, it definitely looks vintage. And so one of the things, well, first of all, the mock-up, there are more elements that are that don't have dark colors. These just ended up stacked at the top when this is how they got built. So we haven't really sat down and done actually worked through what the front page is going to look like. But yeah, and we'll probably, once we've gotten through the migration process, we've got everything back up and running, we'll probably start another cycle to get a better theme. Because the general look and feel and the color scheme and stuff right now is about 10 years old. So it's been around for a while, but hey, Craigslist is still the same. And it's I don't know, but plenty of people still use Craigslist. I'm always amazed, like every time I think about it, I'm like, is that still a thing? And I go and I look and they're like, yep, still a thing. So there you go. Yeah, so yeah, we'll have I don't know if I have, let me see. Well, it'll take too long to find it. I've got some other kind of mock-ups as images. And this was just sort of the rough pass of like the consultant guys getting like all the bits on the
page. It still works beautifully and
oh yeah.
And I can see how the students did all of that, but it's bringing in that younger and younger every day, Elmer. It's
well, I'm aware, and I'm getting older every day, and so there you go. Yeah, and and it's hard to like well, somebody just one of the National Center for State Courts, I think it was, just did a facelift of their site. And it also, I'm pretty sure it's powered by Drupal, and the interface is really nice. It's got that modern sort of feel to it. And we'll get there. They also, like, for reasons that baffle me, they like ditched all of their press releases though. I don't know what.
I just like interactive maps. I can spend all day just clicking on a map. So
clicking on interactive maps, yeah,
that's the best part.
So so here we have an interactive map. This is let's see. Oh, come on. Turn yellow. That's probably lagging a little bit because let me do a refresh here real quick. So we run our own analytics because why should we give data to Google? Also, Google would because we don't have a lot of traffic and we don't do ads and a whole bunch of other stuff, Google was basically what I would best describe as deprioritizing our traffic. Attempts to load like the Google JavaScript little bug thing to track stuff were taking 10 times longer than the page load time. And Google was like, oh, it must be something you're doing. I'm like, dude, come on, man. I've been doing this since before you were born. Quit that. So we switched to our own. This is an open source package called Matomo. Yeah, so this is Matomo. Yeah, we're all about the open source. This database is huge too, by the way. But this, yes, we have, and I've been trying to figure out a way to make this, I want to get this map. This is people, well, it's hits on the website, but mostly it's people running lessons. So the problem is that because I'm logged in, there's like information that you shouldn't see, and I probably shouldn't put in the things. It's all right. So I won't show you. You can actually, like down here, there's a real-time scroll of of what folks are like actually doing. So all those little arrows and folders, that's a lesson running. So so those are people, or those are people running lessons. But yeah, we like our analytics though too. Here's a fun fact. Mac versus Windows. During this academic year, Mac runs at about 55% of all of our traffic. During the summer, it switches over so that Windows picks up more traffic than the Mac.
So students are using their work computers and CALI lessons.
They're probably using, right, some of them are using work computers, some of them are at home or whatever. And so they're just sort of out there, so.
So I have a random question.
Sure.
Is there another open source thing, sort of like content management, that is up and coming that people should be aware of? Like, we've got Drupal 10 and Drupal 11, right?
Yeah.
And of course it's WordPress and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What else should people be looking at? Is there something else on the horizon?
I don't know, like I keep on hearing about, like I've heard about a couple of things over the years, but mostly they go away. I mean, between Drupal and WordPress, that's that's got to be nearly 70% of the web. And so everything else is just sort of, and there's a lot of bespoke stuff getting built, right? So things that are getting built by various design shops and stuff that that for like specific purpose type stuff. But like even Drupal now uses Symfony as its underlying framework. So it has a which gives it at least theoretically gives it more of a lifespan. Also makes it easier to update. But because I mean when Drupal's very close to updating like WordPress does. Man, I love updating WordPress. It just does it automatically in the background now, and you don't have to look at it. Yay! So Drupal's kind of close to that, but yeah, and as far as like other, like I kind of quit looking because nothing. Yeah, I mean, one of the things is that like there's like a lot of stuff because like every now and then somebody will get an itch on something they don't like. The size, because both WordPress and Drupal have gotten pretty big and there's like a lot of features built in, and periodically like somebody will like strip it out and go, yeah, here we can do this with like Ghost or different blogging platforms especially, or little like systems that build little e-commerce sites and stuff. But the thing is that like immediately people are looking for like features from WordPress or Drupal. And it's like, well, there you go. So, so yeah, so I'm sure there's stuff out there I'm just not aware of.
I'm gonna touch on the next question, because
Yeah.
after this is upgrading going to be easier.
So that's what they tell me. So, well, actually it is. I mean, we've already done during the development cycle on Drupal 7, every update of like Drupal core had a tendency to break things. We've upgraded Drupal core at least twice, and some of the major contrib modules that we use a couple of times during this process, and nothing's broken. So I'm optimistic that they've kind of got it nailed. I mean, in WordPress, I've got WordPress plugins that I wrote 15 years ago for WordPress 3 something that are still running now in 6.8 or something like that. Although they're threatening to break a bunch of old stuff because it's but I don't know if they will or not, but that's okay. We need to probably move on from some of that stuff anyway, but and that's always been great. That's been a great thing about WordPress. Because the other thing that would happen with Drupal is sometimes I'd update core or one of the contrib modules and it'd break my modules. And I have to go back in and fix those. But this they're promising not to do that, and so far it seems like it's headed in the right direction. And 11 is supposed to be even better. So the other thing that they're doing, and this is mostly happening in 11, is they're adding AI tools like directly into the system, so that you'll be able to do stuff like, I don't know if this is a feature or not. Have AI help you write things inside the editors and stuff inside of Drupal. As well as using, yeah, I know. Well, it's fascinating to watch. The other thing that comes with some of that AI is like recommendation systems and stuff like that too, which would actually be useful to us, right? You've run these lessons. Now, these are you should do these next, and we've got data on, we know how you did in this. Maybe you're not ready for this one yet. Maybe you need to do that one again. That kind of thing. So yeah, so it's interesting. And DrupalCon this past spring was here in Atlanta, so I didn't even have to go anywhere. I just came up here for a few days. And next year it's in Chicago again, so which is better than Portland. That's a haul. All right. Anybody else?
What criteria did you use when selecting consultants that would help you out with the process?
So I was looking for, I went to DrupalCon in Portland last year. I was actually looking for a small firm that worked with a lot of nonprofits. And they're out there, but mostly they're really busy. They're hard to book, right? But we found somebody that the funny part about was I discovered after having talked to them in Portland, and we had a couple of calls, and then I realized that they had originally had offices like about 6 blocks from John Mayer's house. So they like in that same area of Chicago. So which they've since given up because they've gone all virtual and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was like DrupalCon is actually, well, the sessions are always good, but it's always a good place to get an idea. Because I also I've talked to like some of the bigger consultancies and stuff, and they're very expensive, and they're very busy, and they have their own way of working, and they're not like they've got like sort of their own processes that they make you fit into. That was the other thing I was looking for, was somebody who would like work who would work with me as opposed to sort of like take the stuff, do the project, give it back to you. I need to be involved just because, well, that's the kind of guy I am. But also because of all the custom work we were doing, I need to make sure that all that integrated the way that it worked, or the way that it should work. And it's worked out, and it's actually saved us money because I'm the final QA person, basically. So instead of paying one of their, instead of paying one of their QA people, however much it is an hour to do a final review on the code, which I'm only going to look at again anyway, I do it. And then I get final say on when stuff gets merged into the into the main branch and stuff. So, and it's worked out really well. I mean, we've had like the lead developer on the project has been with us through the whole thing, and so that's been really good. The guy who's doing the front, I think we're on our 3rd front end developer though. That's kind of a problem. But I mean, the way the site's built, the CALI website, I mean, one of the reasons it looks like it does is because most of our work actually goes into like behind the scenes. We don't pay a lot of attention to the front end, so sometimes. So that doesn't bother me too much. But the guy that we have right now is the front end guy is pretty good. He's picked up a lot of sort of tips and stuff. So yeah, so it's and previous consultancies that we worked with, I mean, the folks we're working with right now are called Sandstorm. We had worked for well, more than a couple of years, a few years on and off with MediaCon, which is here in Atlanta, or at least they were. But they got kind of big and their overhead charges were just killing us. And like one of the things about working with like size wise, like it's always important to find like either I want somebody who's worked a lot with nonprofits so that they understand that like I'm not like a mountain of money, right? Or if it's a big, and that's like the big thing, like somebody like MediaCurrent, I mean, they're big and they've got a rate and they don't cut that rate, right? So there's no, there's no discount for nonprofits or anything else. It's like either you got the money or you don't, and then there you go. And then Sandstorm's rate was a lot more reasonable because they do a lot because they work with a lot of nonprofits. So, and that's been pretty good. And there are a couple other ones out. It's been a while again since I've looked because we've been working with these guys, but yeah, you gotta kind of hunt around, and they do tend to gather at like DrupalCon or some of the other smaller regional Drupal get-togethers. And they're usually easy to spot because they might have a table in a corner with some stickers on it, and then there you go. And then as opposed to like the big booth that looks like a castle with a dragon on the top, and yeah, and all that stuff. So, all right. Anything else? Amazingly, I managed to fill an hour. I don't even know. Yeah, thanks. All right. Well, I think we're done. Oh. Wait, did we have any, Tobias, were there any questions from the no questions from the all right. I'm gonna end the webinar. Thanks everybody virtually too.